Hello everyone, you're welcome to this edition of the program, The Inside on Equinox Television from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I'm Bable Jonathan. In this edition of the program, we'll be looking at the organization of the different elections in the Republic of Cameroon. This year, we're talking about the presidential, the senatorial, the legislative and municipal elections that are expected to be organized in the Republic of Cameroon. In the course of this year, we'll be looking at the possibility of organizing the 4 elections and, of course, the possibility of organizing credible and transparent elections in the country. We'll also be looking at the Anglophone crisis, notably the arrest of those who are referred to as secessionist leaders, Sisiku Ayuk and his collaborators in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We'll be right back. Our guest in this edition of the program is one of the top opposition political leaders in the Republic of Cameroon. KAHBANG WALLA Edith is the national president of the Cameroon People's Party, the CPP. Madam the President, you're welcome.
Thank you. Happy New Year to all of the viewers out there. A very, very special thought for the over 15,000 Cameroonians who are refugees in Nigeria today, and a very, very warm 2018 from the extreme north to the south, to the southwest, northwest, Adamawa, and all of the regions of our country. Our country is in a very, very precarious situation today, and what we are wishing from the Cameroon People's Party to all Cameroonians, wherever they may be, is the energy and the strength for us to build the Cameroon that we want and need for tomorrow.
Right. You listened to the President of the Republic on the 31st of December 2017, and he reaffirmed that 2018 is an electoral year. We have 4 elections, the presidential, senatorial, legislative and municipal. How do you foresee this year, the organization of all these elections?
Well, the President said nothing. I mean, you know, it is already a terrible indicator for a country that we are waiting for somebody to say something about an electoral calendar which should be clear. The President said nothing because these different elections, which they are slated for this year, it's not an announcement that he made. And you know, at the level of the Cameroon People's Party and the platform that we belong to, Stand Up for Cameroon, we are very clear. Cameroon does not need elections as the next step. Those who are going for elections should tell us, those 15,000 Cameroonians who are in Nigeria, how are they going to vote? The 300,000 Cameroonians in the extreme north who are displaced citizens, who are not having any service from the government, how are they supposed to vote? The insecurity, which is in 6 out of 10 regions in Cameroon, how are we going to conduct campaigns and elections in those regions? We should be very, very careful.
But the President is conscious of all these. However,
no, but I don't have any confidence in the President anymore. I'm not, as a Cameroonian, banking on what the President has said. This is a President who, for over 1 year today, over 5 million of his residents are in strife, are being killed, are being imprisoned, and he has nothing to say to them. So I'm not building my future on the basis of what that President is saying or not saying. I think we as Cameroonians have to realize that the time has come for us to take our future into our own hands. You cannot be under the responsibility of somebody who has shown that he does not care about you. This President, over 1,500 Cameroonians have been killed in the extreme north. He has never set foot there to talk to those people. People are being killed in the east, even in mines by Chinese people. He has never set foot there. We have had over 1 year of extreme brutality and violence in the southwest and northwest regions. he has never set foot there. Even the soldiers whom he sends against Cameroonians, when those soldiers are killed, he does not go to bury them.
All right.
So, no, sorry, for us, we cannot build our future on the basis of such a person.
All right, we'll be coming back to all of that concerning the crisis and so on in a moment. But now, talking about the elections proper, they are slated for this year, you indicated earlier. But you seem to be very skeptical about the organization of these elections, looking at the present context, the present socio-political atmosphere of the country.
Absolutely. I have given you the number of questions that people, whether they are in government or they are in the opposition, and they are telling us about elections, they should tell us how all of these questions will be answered. So the position of the Cameroon People's Party and the position of Stand Up for Cameroon is that the next step for Cameroon is political transition. Political transition meaning four things. One, the current regime must step down. It has failed, it has woefully failed, and it has put Cameroon in a situation which we would never ever have believed that we can find ourselves in this situation.
And that transition can only come through the ballot box?
No. That transition comes from Cameroonians standing up to demand for this regime to go. It has been done in Burkina Faso, it has been done in Tunisia, it has been done in so many parts of the world. So that is step one. Step two, our belief is that we still have the possibility of national dialogue amongst ourselves now as Cameroonians. We have the possibility as Anglophones and Francophones. We have the possibility as Northerners and Southerners. We have the possibility to sit down around the table, talk about our political history. What this Anglophone crisis has shown us is that we went wrong from the start. We took wrong steps from the time of independence. That includes the way we treated those who were fighting for independence, the nationalists, the Umniobes, the NS1Js, and so on. And it includes the way that we came together as English-speaking Cameroon and French-speaking Cameroon. Now, if this regime is to one side, we as Cameroonians, we can sit down, discuss this, and establish a new foundation for our country. That new foundation includes reforming institutions, because our institutions are in a terrible state. And amongst those institutions is our electoral system. Imagine that I ask you to go for a football tournament. You have a team, the other gentleman here, the cameraman, he has a team, the other gentleman has a team, and I have a team. But when you ask me when will the tournament take place, I say no, you just keep practicing. I am the only one who knows when the tournament will take place. Imagine that you ask me, well, who is the referee? And I say, no, I have some people who used to play on my team. They are a bit tired now, so I've put them to referee the match. Imagine that you ask me, what is the shape of the field? How will I be going on the field to play? I say, no, I will tell you which part of the field you can go to and which part of the field you cannot go to.
You're referring to the President of the Republic? Then?
This is the election, this is type of election that we are being asked to go to. Cameroonians can no longer accept this. We have been doing it for over 25 years, going to accompany Mr. Biya on elections where he is the sole person who knows the calendar. He is the sole person who has nominated those who are the referees of the election, that is Elekam. He is the sole person to know what Elekam is doing. We go for registration, they tell us they have registered this number, they have not registered this number. Who knows? What is the verification process? Where is the transparency? Do we continue in this process? You know, today, this morning, I was pained because the American president insulted African countries. He called us shithole countries. Why do we allow people from these countries to come to the United States? That was his statement. And then I thought about it. Then I said to myself, but are we not behaving in the manner that he is describing? Are we not behaving that way? What What is this country that has no electoral calendar, is waiting for one man to tell us whether we will have elections or not? What is this country where one person is controlling the entire electoral system, like his the back of his house, like his kitchen? Even
the organ in charge of organizing elections is not aware of the electoral calendar.
So do we get upset at the American president because of all these things, because of the way Mr. Biya has managed the country, because of the crisis? Look at us. We are Cameroonians. Look at us having refugees. So we have allowed this man to bring us to a state where we have refugees, and we want to go and accompany him in an election? I don't think so. In a nutshell, you're saying that in the present context, with all what you're describing, elections do not make sense. Do not make sense. And Cameroonians, we are 23 million. No force, no army, no nothing can stop us if we make our mind up about something. And we need to make up our mind rather than lose our citizens, because that is what is happening. The country has been so badly managed that some people want to go. They say, no, stay with your bad management. We want to leave. But I say, no, I want to keep my brother and sister wherever they are from. I don't want them to leave. And therefore, I would prefer for Mr. Biya to go. Yes, so we make up our mind for them to leave. We sit down and do our national dialogue. We reform our institutions, and then we have elections. Elections which are fair and transparent and which every Cameroonian can believe in. Yes, you're saying that the present regime should step down, but not through the ballot box. So how is that going to happen? Well, as I have said to you, it happens when citizens decide and insist that it should happen peacefully, without violence. But if we come out in our numbers and we ask this regime to step down, they will have no choice. That was the case in Burkina. That was the case in Egypt. That was the case in Tunisia. We have so many examples around the world where it has been done. Why will we Cameroonians continue to deal with somebody who is a dictator rather than putting him aside so that we can build the country? That's not as easy as that. Nothing is easy. Nothing is easy. It is time for us as Cameroonians to decide for ourselves. No independent country, no country which is truly free, where liberties are exercised, has had it easy. Everybody has fought for it. We must do the same. But why not fight for the rectifications of the wrongs, notably concerning the electoral code, the electoral calendar, the way elections are managed? This is a fight that you have been leading early on. Yes, well, I'm glad that you said it's a fight that I have been leading. We have been fighting, not only me, the entire opposition, civil society. People have been fighting this fight for the last 25 years. When you have a dictator in place who does not want to rectify anything which will endanger his own power, then you realize that you are in a situation where you must ask that person to go. You must put that person to the side, because they have become the stumbling block. And when I say person, I'm not talking about one individual, because as we know, it is a system, it is a regime which is keeping us where we are, and we can no longer withstand it. We are dying, we are being imprisoned, our brothers and sisters are crossing the border for safety. How long do we as Cameroonians allow this to go on? Now, but the president has already announced, and he has made it very clear that the elections are going to hold, and according to some analysts, the presidential and the senatorial are the two that are likely to hold, because this can only be postponed through a constitutional amendment, which they don't foresee for now. But the other two, municipal and legislative, can be postponed because the president has been given powers by the constitution to do so. So when we look at the presidential and the senatorial holding this year, is that not going to be like a way out? Because when has elections been a way out under Mr. Biya? When has it been a way out? Now, if the elections don't hold, you know the definition of madness is to keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result. No, this is not a solution for us. Let me ask you a question. The senatorial are supposed to hold in April according to the mandate of those senators. According to the constitution, they have a 5-year mandate. They are supposed to hold elections in April. Now here is the question. The Senate elections are an indirect election, meaning that it is municipal councillors and elected officials who vote for the Senate. So are we saying that municipal councillors whose mandate comes to an end in June will vote for the senators for the next 5 years? Is that what we're saying? What kind of sense does that make as a country? That councillors whose mandate is ending in June should be the ones voting for the next Senate of Cameroon. You know, we have to think about these things. We have to think about these things. We cannot go elections. No, our elections today do not make sense. They don't make sense. It does not make sense to go to an election when you don't know the date of the election. It does not make sense to go to an election when a LECAM is entirely constituted of CPDM members, and CPDM is part of the election you are going to. It does not make sense to go to an election when the Supreme Court, in case you have any problem, it is that Supreme Court to judge. And they have shown us time and time again that they owe allegiance only to one person, to the person who nominated them.
Now, if elections must hold this year, what should be done?
I have said Cameroonians should take their responsibility and make sure that we have political transition this year. That's our only agenda point. That's our only agenda point. And if we make the mistake to enter Mr. Bia's agenda again, then we, you, me, and everybody who is watching, we should take the responsibility for the catastrophe that our country will find as itself in.
All right, Madam the President, we're going to take a short break. Time for us to go over to the southwest region of the country. And as the Anglophone crisis continues deepening, the number of people who are fleeing their homes in the northwest and southwest regions of the country to neighboring Nigeria is increasing by the day. Inhabitants of villages, notably those in the southwest region along the border with the Federal Republic of Nigeria, have been fleeing their homes and now seeking refuge in President Buhari's country. Now we take you to one of those villages, KAHBANG, in the southwest region. Derek Jato.
KAHBANG, a village in Manu division of the southwest region of Cameroon, is empty. There is no sign of life here. The people have left the land of their ancestors, and sources say the threat brought by the Anglophone crisis has frightened them out of their birthplace. Some are reportedly in the forest. Some have crossed to neighboring Nigeria, while some people are seeking refuge in other villages like Osin and Bakut. And those we met told us that life is unbearable.
For peace to reign, if peace reign, at least economic will be flowing, and then movement will be, at least people will be moving from one place to another, going for business interaction. But now that the crisis is still going on, we are just pleading, we are praying God that let the head of state or the ministers, God should give them wisdom for them to come out.
Many of them have lost their loved ones and the security forces too. And their prayers now is for God to keep them alive.
People are dying. We don't even know how to record back again this death. So I wish the government to find a final conclusion.
And for dialogue on how to address the Anglophone crisis that has brought this untold hardship to them, be speedy and sincere.
And I cannot even know when this strike will end. So I'm calling on the government and those who are in charge of this problem to find a final conclusion, because if we keep these children not to go to school, it is a sin.
Schools might have resumed for the second term in other towns and regions of the nation, but here, school is a forgotten issue.
My name is Deep Grace. Well, I'm a student of JHS Manfe. I'm a opposite student, ready to go to the university, but I'm not opportune, and I really wish to be there. So here we are in the village wasting our time.
Mr. Ashu John, a teacher at government school Mbakut, is leaving the situation.
We teachers cannot go and commit suicide to kill ourselves because the children are not there. What do we teach? We teach who? Do we teach the classes alone like that? Look at schools are empty. Children become thieves.
And the entire division is now reaping from the absence of classes.
Girls children have been pregnant. I don't know me what to say about this problem. They are planning now to have more rebels. Thieves.
Some are pregnant, some are... In fact, there are so many things that are going on between students and the youth. Right now, we don't know the difference between a mother and a child because of what is going on. So we are pleading on the Cameroon government to at least do something.
Pundits, on their part, say life might only come back to KAHBANG again when the Anglophone crisis, a crisis that drove the villagers from their land, is given the expected attention.
You welcome back. Now we're talking the Anglophone crisis, and as you notice in that report, the number of people who are fleeing their homes to neighboring Nigeria, those who are now seeking refuge in the bushes, keeps on increasing by the day as the situation in the two Anglophone regions of the country continues worsening. Madam the President, when you look at the current situation in the two Anglophone regions of the country, what do you think about the future?
To go back to my earlier point, this is a heartbreaking situation, and I want to once again address the sincere condolences to all Cameroonians, all people from the northwest and southwest who are suffering from this situation. I also want to address our condolences to the families of those soldiers who have been killed, those who have gone there on the instruction, because they are victims as well. They have gone there on the instruction of leaders who do not care about their citizens. So this situation in and of itself, as I explained, is enough to make us to stop and to say, how do we move forward? At this point, in our opinion, we cannot move forward with the current regime. We often say Cameroonians have a choice today. Either we keep the Anglophones and we get rid of Mr. Biya, or we stay with Mr. Biya, and in that case, it is unquestionable that many Anglophones will leave us. So we have that choice to make. And I can tell you very clearly, our choice is that we stay together as a country, keep our relationships. We are intermarried, we own property left and right. Anglophones who own property in the Francophone zone, Francophones who own property in the Anglophone zone. We have been going to school together. We have built over the last 57 years so many ties, intermarriages, children, some of whom are born on one side and only speak that language, and so on. We would not like to try to tear that apart, but that means that this regime has to go, and therefore only after they have gone, because today we talk of dialogue, we talk of having a dialogue amongst Cameroonians, but the Biya regime can no longer be the one to convene that dialogue. Those people whom you are describing, who were described in this report, who have crossed the border in fear of their safety, who have crossed the border because their villages have been attacked. Do you think those people will come to a dialogue table by the same person who sent soldiers to attack them? So this dialogue today is only possible with what we call a transition government. A transition government is made up of not me, not opposition parties, but a neutral body, a body that we can trust. This can be religious leaders, this can be lawyers, this can be people from advocates from civil society who form a government. Now bring us together. Let us talk about our history. Let us talk about how we want to live together, all of us, in a way that respects everybody's rights. Because we cannot go forward with some people being second-class citizens, others are first-class citizens.
Now, dialogue is being preached from all directions, from the opposition, from the government, but at the same time, a military solution is being implemented on the ground in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, which is one of the reasons why many have fled their homes. Villages have been deserted, and now we're talking about the arrest of leaders of the interim Ambazonian government, Ayuk Sisiku and others in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The situation seems to be complicating for them.
Yes. So what we can say about the arrest of these people who have been arrested, as you know, as I've said, Stand Up for Cameroon and the Cameroon People's Party, we believe our country should stay together. So we are not of the same political opinion as those who have been arrested. However, we believe that Cameroon should be a state that respects the rule of law. So the current situation in which we find ourselves is unacceptable. People have been abducted. They have been abducted because neither the country of Nigeria nor the country of Cameroon is telling us anything about those people. And that for us is unacceptable. Even if you arrest a murderer, even if you arrest somebody whom you caught in the act of killing somebody, rule of law says you must accuse that person according to procedure. You must hold that person according to procedure. That person must be tried according to procedure. How are we? These people, we don't agree with them, but there are Cameroonians who agree with them. There are Cameroonians for whom those are their leaders. So we cannot accept that these people are abducted. We don't know where they are. We don't know what is their state of health. We don't know what is the trial procedure which is being followed. No.
And the arrest seem to be complicating the situation.
So this is living in total anarchy. And this is why, once again, we say the only solution for this country is political transition. Every day, the BR regime disqualifies itself. It is only up to us now as Cameroonians to acknowledge, because they have already disqualified themselves. It is up to us now to acknowledge that they are disqualified and move them away from the field. Without that, we will not be able to build a future for our country.
And after that arrest, many are becoming more radical in their stance. Operation Ghost Town has moved from 1 day to 3 days.
Let me say this very, very clear. There would have been no secessionist movement in Cameroon without the Biya regime. The secessionists have always existed. As an Anglophone, any Anglophone who says they didn't know anything about secession, I think is not telling the truth. This is something that has existed since independence. But the force of this movement, as we know it today, the number of people who have joined it today, is a direct result of the mismanagement of this crisis by the Biya regime. It is a direct result of their use of violence. Because today, we deplore, we will never accept that gendarmes should be killed, soldiers should be killed. No, this is unacceptable. But we must remember who was the first to use violence. It is this regime which sent people to Boya when innocent students were demonstrating, And we saw those students' heads being put in the mud. We saw those children being tortured. We saw those children, people going into their university rooms to pull them out to beat them. It is this regime which sent soldiers to beat lawyers. To beat lawyers. That is how the violence started.
All right.
So right now, this radicalization, every move this government has made has radicalized people. Cutting off the internet, and I must please talk about the internet, which as we sit is still off in the southwest and northwest. I spent 1 week in the southwest and it is terrible. Either you must be using VPN, some people have had to install satellite dishes, and so this is unacceptable. We are the regime tells us we are one and indivisible. Then if we are one and indivisible, how do you create two countries? Some people have internet, others don't. All of these actions is what is radicalizing people on the ground.
Right, Madam the President.
And if we don't get rid of this regime, we will, as I've said, we have a choice between the Anglophones and the regime. The regime must go, the Anglophones must stay.
We'll be right back in some few minutes. Time for us to take interviews of the week.
We think that violence cannot solve the problem. Violence only generates violence, and we are appealing to everybody to stop the vicious cycle of violence, because with violence we can only end up having violence.
The effect of this socio-political crisis is serious, because my turnover, it has dropped seriously. I am suffering also because of this problem.
It has affected the business tremendously in a way that, or simply because the time, many people have gone out of time because of their own activities. They were not working. Then presently now our customers have reduced, the prices of things have increased, some are scarce. Worse is even not even our business. The children are badly affected. Every day getting up and seeing a child in the house traumatizes a parent very much. Some of us who are parents, we feel too bad.
The turnout as of last year is still lesser than the number we had before we went on holidays. Because we went on holidays with an enrollment of 33, and today we have an enrollment of 25 pupils. So we are still expecting that number should come or more than that. To 2016, I had an enrollment of 42 pupils, but now I'm having 9 of them in class, so teaching is really very boring.
It is very, very difficult, because you see, once they switched from 4 and they were supposed to be in 5 and now they are in 6, the work is really, really very difficult, because they cannot understand basic concepts which they could have been taught in class 5, and they see those things in 6, and it's very, very difficult for them.
If you cannot run, you walk for 1 hour. Who's that coming in with the car?
The resumption has been quite effective in this school, and like you rightly say, we reopened on the 3rd of January. We had catch-up classes, and this is a program which is respected by all the schools, public schools in the Northwest and Southwest regions. As you saw for yourself, there's still a handful of parents out there seeking admission in various classes. For those who come to be registered in examination classes, it's rather unfortunate. If there is no proof that you were following up studies before now, it will be fairly difficult for us to consider you in examination classes. But in the junior classes, when the committee looks through the report cards as proof that the children merit the classes where they are applying, we only counsel the parents that the children stand the risk of repeating the class, because they will not have followed up what was done during the first term.
we're calling dialogue. Dialogue is the absolute means of getting to such a better solution, a lasting solution to our problems.
We have met with all the stakeholders here, and they have committed themselves to be up to the expectation of not only the head of state, the government, but also to the expectation of the population of the Northwest region, who are eagerly expecting the normalcy to come back in the region. I have therefore instructed the administrative authorities, the regional head of services, to neglect nothing in their various fields of action to remobilize our population, to remobilize all the other stakeholders under their supervision, to get themselves involved in that process of coming back to normalcy.
The moment you start having taboo questions, you prevent people from addressing the real issues. And so we hope that the partners who are concerned would listen to the people. The solution we have always proposed right from the beginning of this problem is that there must be dialogue. Open dialogue, frank dialogue, dialogue in the truth. You know, you cannot have any reconciliation without dialogue. And we cannot have peace without reconciliation. So to talk about peace without talking about dialogue, without talking about reconciliation is impossible. To talk about peace without talking about social justice is impossible.
I would like therefore to promise to the Northwest this year that everything will be put in place at our level to make sure the elections that are eagerly expected by the political figures of the region are organized history. We cannot succeed in that endeavor without the collaboration of the Northwestern population, without the involvement of our collaborators that are already committed themselves to do so. And we are now expecting that we'll all put together 2018 will be a better year for the Northwest region.
There is problem of security in the septentrion, Adamawa, North and Extreme North. We know the problem of refugee in the East region. We know the problem of security in Northwest and Southwest. So when we will program our activities, we have not to forget that we have to be vigilant in duty about security. Apart from the special measure that will be taken by the authorities, yourself, you have to be your proper agent of security, who is behind you, who is before you, and who is beside you. We have the National Youth Day launch in our region. That means Yabasi and Yingi will receive the Ministry of Youth and Affairs and Civic Education for the launch ceremony. The main aspect we retain is the social and economic problem of youth. So forums are already scheduled in youth, social and economic employment. That is what we have to do during these 11 days, and particularly health among youth, because without health we cannot go far. Without health we cannot succeed in anything for your enterprises. That is why we have one day specially for health among youth with the regional delegate of public health, and it will be at the University of Douala.
There was a budget from FECOM that Mindful had to construct another tank in Otutu, between Otutu and Ewongo. And Mindful has constant supply of water. But this project was to come to Mutengene. But what was spoken that they should not build in Mutengene because Mutengene is SDF. And now the people are suffering because of bad governance. So even the water committee, the water board cannot do any good job. People stay for months without no water. But for which when people pay in every home 7,000 francs a year, and then maybe those public taps, so many doesn't even function, and then What is the water committee doing with the money? The same as what is the government of Cameroon doing with money? People pay taxes, the budget, money that can be borrowed from different countries. What do they do with the money? But everything goes into private pocket. So everything right from the grassroots is out of the bad governance.
Well, I don't think the council is giving us any support. Instead, up to date, they have not done anything to rescue the situation. So I don't think they are giving us any assistance.
What they are doing there is total cacophony, because those committees are supposed to be under the management of the council as per the latest presidential text.
Presently, we are at the peak of the dry season now, and probably will face crisis with water from now right up to March. So it's difficult, but we'll try as much as possible to ration water in the quarters.
The material will finally enjoy more than every other place in the municipality. Like I always tell people, we have put on a project with the KFW, German funding body, to put water in Motenele to a tune of 867 million.
Our cry is that God Almighty should come. We need a change from the top to the bottom.
What I'm doing right here is based on the scripture. Jesus said, I was in prison and you visited me. So to me, I believe the greatest investment and showbiz you can put on is in the prison. I am really using also this platform, this opportunity to urge my other friends that on the day of the finals, which is 25th of February, please come, all of you, come. Bring all those your own dresses and shoes. Bring it. They need gifts. They need dresses. They need your financial support. They need a lot of things from you guys.
This batch of doctors, of pharmacists, and masters in biomedical sciences, they are very competent. They are also committed to enhance the profession of doctor, pharmacist and biomedical. What I can ask them is that they must be humanist. They must respect the keys of professionalization, the keys of competence, the keys of humanism, because we are all in their disposition.
The objective is to bring together the wife of the policemen so they can put their togetherness at the service of the Cameroonian police to have a better police. The contribution we are putting in is that the commissioner's wife should be able to sit together with the inspector's wife to share together without any complex. This is the living together.
The President of the Republic, head of state, is committed to giving his personal impetus to the preparations of the Cameroon 2019 Total AFCON towards a successful organization of this prestigious event.
We are well advanced in the construction of the foundations and of the stadium and of the tribune. So a lot of columns have been erected, foundation sleeves are in place. We were very happy to receive in a good state without any major problems the first elements, concrete elements coming from Italy. So 231 containers have been received. It was offloaded in a record time of 4 days.
The Japoma Stadium with 50,000 seats and the Olembe Stadium with 60,000 seats. Work is going satisfactorily. As far as the Olembe Stadium is particularly concerned, a second cargo of 263 containers carrying precast materials from Italy is already on site.
Why prefabricated elements? Well, this was mainly to gain time. The choice for prefabrication allowed us to do the construction on site and in the same time prepare the concrete elements so that whenever the foundations were ready to quickly be able to install the structure. Why it was done in Italy? Because in order to be able to do this, to fabricate these elements, you really need an infrastructure which is operational. So I'm sure and I'm hoping that this project can be an incentive for some Cameroonian entrepreneurs to have a good precast unit and to start introducing this technology in the country. medical services in Yaoundé is at least the highest in Cameroon. And so some rehabilitation work is taking place in some of the hospitals, and some of them, like the Garnison Hospital, is already very set with all the technical equipment. So we don't have any problem there. Some of the hotels, they were asking for about 8 hotels, but we have made it up to about 15. So that if they want to eliminate some of them, we will still have at least 10 hotels, 10 good hotels, which will be ready to welcome the players, the journalists, and the officials of CAF in 2019.
Delivery of the various facilities is expected by December 2018 latest, in accordance with CAF list of requirements. This concerns sports facilities, hotels, hospitals, airports, and their networks, water, electricity, ICTs, and so on.
Right, Madam the President, looking at all what is happening in the Northwest and Southwest regions now, looking at all the measures that are being implemented on the ground by government, looking at the calls from the international organizations, the civil society, political actors, and so on, which have so far yielded little or no fruits as far as the crisis is concerned. The situation is rather worsening. What should be done at this point in time?
Once again, I will say the regime has to go. That is step one. It is a sine qua non. If we do not have this regime out of the way, we will not be able to rebuild our country. One, they must go. Two, we must set up a transition government of non-political actors, technocrats, people of moral integrity, who will be able to conduct us to the national dialogue. During that dialogue, in our opinion, we are not only talking about the Anglophone crisis. We will talk about the Anglophone crisis, yes, but we are a country whose war for independence, where over somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000 people were killed. We have never talked about that. It is time to put that issue on the table and to address it. It is time for us to talk about our relationship with our former colonizers. Every day today you hear people saying, oh, France will not let you do this, France will not let. It is time for us to sit down and redefine our relationship with France, with the United Kingdom. That is our job. They are not going to do it. We have to do it, and those are the next steps. The next step is to reform the electoral system, to have a neutral body that is managing the elections, to have a transparent electoral calendar where every Cameroonian knows that this date elections are taking place, to have 2 rounds of elections. People keep asking the opposition to select one candidate. Why? The mechanism by which this is done around the world is 2 rounds of elections.
So you're not for any coalitions?
So to have this, I have told you that for us, the next step is not elections. Our next step will be our agenda that we get up every morning and that we work on is political transition for Cameroon.
All right. Thank you so much, Madam the President. KAHBANG WALLA, Edith, President of the Cameroon People's Party, the CPP.
Thank you. And I wish all the best to the Cameroonians who are listening and ask you to stand up. Stand up for Cameroon. We are losing our country. Stand up, join us, and let us ensure the rebuilding of our nation, that is political transition for Cameroon.
Stand up for Cameroon. That is the message from the national president of the Cameroon People's Party, the CPP, KAHBANG WALLA Edith. She was a guest in this edition of The Inside. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us. Take the appointment for next Sunday for another edition of the program.